Greetings, folks. Welcome to another week of Tarot Talks. This week, I'm going to do something that is a little bit different. I teach a web dev class at Seattle Central College here in web authoring, web development, web design, stuff like that. And yesterday, I realized that many of the students there had not really encountered or come to grips with command line yet. So I created a BuzzFeed listicle lecture, basically, which is your top 10 command line commands and services that you should know in order to have some degree of understanding about how to get your way around inside any kind of web server that you've got out there. So let's get started. I'm also going to do something a little bit differently today, which is to do some screen sharing, since I'm going to actually show you what I'm doing. I'm going to show you the list of commands, and I'm going to show you the actual inside of one of my servers. Now, for all of you out there who are hackers, awesome, good for you. First, don't be a dick, like Will Wheaton says, and don't hack my stuff until I'm done with the lecture teaching the kiddies. And after that, if you can hack it, after I have nuked the server, brought it back to life, changed the ports, and changed the security on it, then I want to interview to work for me. So feel free to try, but just let me get through the lecture first. That would be awesome, because this is going to be live, and I'm going to show people in real time what it means to change and shut down some of these services, to bring them back up again, to use these commands, to nuke some stuff and some files on your server, to really understand what's going on. So just do me a favor and leave it alone for a little bit. After that, I probably want to talk to you anyway. Okay, so first of all, let's look at what is the top 10 commands that you can and should use when you are on is this present to everyone? Good, click. Okay, when you are on any kind of command line situation, the first thing I'm going to note is this. These are your commands. These are some of the services you should know. And I got a couple of great questions, so I'm going to add this in. One of the things is, I am assuming that you're using bash. If I'm assuming that you're using bash, it is because most of the tutorials, most of the tricks and tips that are out there are going to be bash based. You can also change your environment at any point to bash from any other service that you've got. It's pretty common. If you're worried about whether you're using C shell or Z shell or whatever, then you're beyond the scope of this lecture anyway. Bash stands for Born Again Shell, and it's basically a way to interface with a computer behind the GUI. GUI is graphic user interface. And one of the things that I really try to get across to my students and to other people is that the further away you are from the actual machine, from the ones and zeros, the less power you have, the more fine-grained your control can sometimes be over the things that you're doing, but the less power that you have. So command line tools are really powerful. I actually had a student ask me yesterday, isn't the reason they're not teaching us command line yet because it's too powerful? And I said, I don't know if that's the case, but I know you should not fear power, Padawan. And the point of the entire lecture really is to show that command line commands are one abstraction closer to what the computer is actually doing. When you're looking at an operating system like Linux, like Windows, like Mac, anything like that, OS X, I guess, for Mac, you are looking at a level of abstraction away from actually manipulating the files that exist on the machine. And the closer you get to it, the easier it's going to be for you. So the first thing you need to know is that when you're looking at a terminal, I'm going to go to a terminal right now, share. Theoretically, that's working. Okay. When you are looking at a terminal, what you're actually looking at is the inside of the machine. And you're looking at the level of abstraction behind the pictures that you manipulate on the desktop that tell the computer to do something. So if you took a look at the list of the top 10 commands and services that I had out there, I'm going to post those later too, but just listen to me talk for the moment. What you're going to see is the very first thing is that we are actually on a server in the middle of nowhereness. We're going to pretend that it's in Atlanta, even though it's in a different site right at the moment. There's a difference between, on you. Okay, you're complaining because I changed. So give me 1 second here. There's a difference between being on the computer that I am on right now, which is my MacBook at home, and being in a computer that is someplace else. And the command line is telling you, it's showing you that you are in a different location when you SSH into someplace. What is SSH, you may ask? SSH is secure shell. It is a way to talk to another computer and to directly interact with it. I'm going to, oh, there's working again, good. So when you look at this right here, you see Tarah's MacBook Air. What this means is that we are actually on my MacBook Air right now. We are in a bash shell that is direct. It's you might think of it as peeking behind the curtain of a desktop. Right now on my desktop, there's some steampunk wallpaper and some folders and a Pandora Air application that's busy playing Mozart. But behind all that is the file system that lets all that work. And right now you're looking at exactly that. I'm going to go straight from this computer into command number 4 on our list, which is SSH. I'm going to take you straight to my currently running Red Queen server. This is the server that I use to host most of my personal websites on. To do that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to type in SSH, and I'm going to type in the alias queen.2 that I have set up here for going directly to the computer that is existing out there in Atlanta. This is the address of it right now. And if I enter, what's going to happen is this. Just hit the enter key. It's telling me behind the scenes, even though I know this looks like total gibberish, this is actually reasonably intelligible. I'm going to show you what some of this stuff is. The first thing it says is welcome to Ubuntu. I feel like Steve Jobs was right when he said that a machine just really needs to say hello and be more friendly. That's true. What you're seeing right here is that this server doesn't have any way of showing a graphic user interface. Instead, all that it's showing me is the file system behind it that serves up web pages. The last login, like you can see here, is from this number that starts 46.246.44.208. That is an IP address, and while I am logging in from my home, I am clearly not in Sweden at the moment. This brick of IP addresses is actually in Sweden. I am piping my SSH right now through what we call a virtual private network that lets me have my endpoint in Sweden. And the reason I'm doing that is I don't really want to expose my personal IP address to my home to all of the internets. Instead, go find that IP address, and best of luck to you. Okay, so now you can see here Tarah Marie at Red Queen 2. What this means is that the user Tarah Marie is logged into this server called Red Queen 2. As I go through this, I'm going to conflate the words server and machine or box or computer. And the reason why is the same thing that we do when we say the White House issued a statement today. It is a metonym. It is conflating the location of something with its function or with the people that it's part of. We know that the house that is white did not actually issue a statement. It was the president's press secretary, but it's a way of conflating it all. Now that we're on this machine right here, this is a computer. It's a cloud computer. Don't worry too much about that right now. But it's also a computer that hosts several different kinds of servers. One of the servers that it's hosting is the SSH server. And I'm going to start developing an analogy right now that's going to hopefully be pretty helpful for you. It was really helpful for my class yesterday. Think of this computer that exists in Atlanta somewhere as a house in Atlanta. And there are some people in the house and some stuff stored in the house. When you are SSHing into a computer like this one, into this computer that exists in the middle of nowhere, which physically exists in Atlanta someplace, and yet I'm reaching out to it over the internet to get into this computer, even though I'm sitting here in my office in Redmond, Washington, what I'm doing is I am knocking on the door of a house in Atlanta right now. One of the things that you'll note is that there's a lot of different doors to this house. In fact, there's somewhere around 65,000 doors to this house. I happen to know that usually you'd want to go to door number 22 and knock on that door, and someone's theoretically going to tell you, do you have the keys or don't you have the keys? In this case, I've actually specified that I want to use a very different door. I'm not sure if that door is going to show up here, but it doesn't really matter anyway, since I am going to change that door as soon as I get off this particular lecture. So let's just say that I have specified on this other computer that I want door number 30,000 to be the door that I knock on. So I'm going to go knock on that door. And that's exactly what I just did when I SSH'd into Red Queen 2. What I did was I knocked on the door that I knew was there because I knew there was somebody behind it. The reason I know there's someone behind it is because there is an SSH server, which is a process that's running on this computer that exists, again, out in the middle of Atlanta. This is the house. I know that there's a guy behind the door waiting to open it. If I turned off that server, and I'll show you that in a moment, there wouldn't be anybody behind the door to answer my questions. So I knocked on that door, and I happen to have, in the back of my pants here, in my config file and in my public keys, the correct key to get me through the door. So now I'm in the house in Atlanta. Now I'm going to look around at least a little bit here, and the way that I'm going to look around is that very first command. I'm going to type in the letters LS. LS means list. That's all that it means. And what it's going to do is show me all of the files and folders that are in the directory that I'm in right now. I got dumped out into my home directory. Do you see the little tilde, the little squiggly line right behind the dollars, right beside the dollar sign next to the blinking cursor? That tilde is a shortcut that says I'm in my home directory. My home directory is where I have a bunch of websites right now. TheTarah.com is one of the major sites that I've got up, and a lot of people go to that site. I've got a couple of other sites up there too, and a few that are located in different places. These aren't all the websites that I have, but I've just got a few sitting out here. Awesome Poker Sim is not, in fact, a website. It's just a really, really cool poker simulation, which I'm going to host sometime and show the world that there is, in fact, really intelligent, different ways to bet than has really previously been explored before. But we'll get into that later. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is show you the command cd. The command cd means change directory. So if I go cd and I change directory into, say, my main website, which is thetarah.com, I'm going to type the letter T, and then I'm going to tab right now. And the reason I'm going to tab is because tab completes if you have entered in enough unique characters. If, for instance, I had another site in here called thecat.com, I would have to type in THEC in order to tab complete, because that would be the first character that would give me a unique identification. I would type in the tab key at that point. It would give it to me. So I tabbed in here. I'm going to hit enter right now. Tab complete is also a really good way to tell whether or not the computer knows what you're talking about. If you type in a couple of characters you think are unique and you try to tab complete and hear dunk instead of seeing it tab complete, then you probably have made a mistake someplace. So here I am in the top level of this website, and I happen to know that there is actually another directory under here called blog. And I know this because I know this is a WordPress installation. This WordPress installation has whole lots of files and folders in it. And if you've ever installed WordPress on a computer before, or you've done it through a graphic interface, this is what actually lives out there in the folder that is serving up your WordPress site. So I can manipulate and directly interact with these files now that I'm back here. The next thing I want you to notice is the mv command. mv and cp are actually a little bit misleading. The mv command means move, and cp means copy. And yet, ironically, we tend to use the mv command more to rename things than we do to move it to another location. And the reason why is, again, there's a whole lot of power going on back here. If you move a file from one location to another and something weird happens in the middle, then you might just lose the file. Imagine it as picking up a book and moving it to another house. If you photocopied the book, picked up that photocopy, moved it over to another house and set it down there, then if something went wrong in the middle of you walking to that other house, you'd be able to go back to the original house and make another photocopy of the original book before you realize that your task was complete. You've actually managed to succeed in getting that book to the new house, and you can go back and get rid of the old copy if you want to, because now it's just junk in the old house. So actually what we use copy for is to do something like this. I am going to use the mv command and show you that I can move, meaning rename, the file called index. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to do kitty instead. Kitty.php, and I'm going to rename that to cat.php. Now that I've done that, you can see here that kitty, since I typed in ls to show me everything that was in there, you can see that kitty is now missing and cat now exists there. So that's not the greatest idea, because if anything had gone wrong in the middle, you would have just lost it. Okay, so the best way to do this instead is to, and let's go back and recreate the original file the right way by going cp. So we're going to copy this. We're going to copy cat over to a file called kitty.php. It's going to put it back the way that it was. Now we're going to ls and take a look at this. Now cat and kitty exist. This is the right way to do it because it's creating a backup as you're creating the process. The next thing that you do is you use this command right here, which I'm not putting it on the list, but you should probably know it anyway. It's rm. That is remove. And we're going to type in rm cat.php. And now cat is missing from that folder. Okay, those are those commands. Something that is another trick in this first line here is that you should know that ... is a shortcut, just like tilde. Told you tilde was a shortcut, but watch this. I'm going to type in cd and I'm going to step up a level in my folder directory. See how I'm in thetarah.com whack blog down there? I'm going to type in cd ... and it's going to bring me up to one more level, up one level in the file structure back into the main file, that folder that is thetarah.com. So instead, I'm going to cd ... back up into the main directory here, my main home directory. And what you see here is all of the original websites. Now, if I had wanted to go back to this, I could have explicitly specified instead of using the shortcut. I'm going to change directory back into the folder that I was just in. Here's that Tarah. Come on. And I'm going to add blog here because I know that's there. So how I tab completed it. I'm going to press enter. And I'm back in this folder again. I can explicitly specify by changing directory into where I know I originally want to be. But there's my home directory right there. See, this did the exact same thing as that ... but it's a little bit longer of a process. Okay, next thing we're going to do is look at command number 2. I'm going to share this over here so that you can see which one I am showing you. Where did this go? So again, here's the list of the things that we're looking at right now. And I'm not exactly sure how to post this to the Hangout itself, but if you could see this, you can see that we're going now to number 2, Chmod and Chone. Wait, that wasn't all the way there. Okay, so there it is. There's the list to everybody. All right. And then we're going to go to step 2, and I'm going to walk you all the way through these things. Okay. By the way, my spectacular and cunning hat today is courtesy of the awesome and completely amazing Lisa Weeks, who will be at DEF CON with me in a little bit. She makes these awesome hats that have circuit boards and stuff like that in them, so I'm wearing her cunning hat today. This was my birthday present. I'm very proud of it. Okay, back to the server again. Okay, now that we're here, CHMOD and CHOWN have to do with the way that computers think about who has the right to do things. If you've ever watched the television show House MD, there's an ongoing joke that it's never lupus. Well, the ongoing joke in Linux is that it's always file permissions. It's always the permissions somehow. Here's what that means. On computers, if you've ever right-clicked something and seen an error message come up that says you don't have authorization to do that, or only your administrator can install new programs, that has to do with the permissions that you as a user have to do stuff to files. So I'm going to change into the Tarah.com again and into blog. And here I am, and I'm going to go into WP content. This is where I keep all the images and files and folders in the CD. Did you hear that dunk? That dunk happens every time I tab complete and I didn't get the command quite right. So here I am, and I'm looking at some of the stuff that is used to keep a website, like a WordPress website, up and running. Plugins, themes, uploads, things like that. If I went into the uploads folder right there, you would see that uploads it has all the pictures and things like that that go on my posts and things like that. Plugins do things like provide extra interesting screen options and widgets on the side of the main page. So here I am, and as you can see here, each of these has a highlight around them in a way that doesn't exist on some of the other files and folders. One of the reasons why is that, for instance, in uploads, I need to have everybody everywhere able to view the content that is in uploads. The reason for that is if no one outside this server had the permission to view images, they just wouldn't show up on the website. There's some stuff that has to be visible to the public, essentially, when it comes to creating a website. One of those things would be images or pictures or headshots, things like that. So I'm going to add a command right now, which is a variation on the first command I showed you, which is ls. This is ls-la. That is called a switch. It is a variable on a command, but ls space -la means list everything, okay? And what that's going to do is it's going to show me stuff like this. It's going to show me that everybody has the right, and some of these things I have set openly right now, and I'm going to go back and fix that stuff a little bit later on anyway, that everyone has the right on some of these files and folders to read, write, and execute. One of those folders should not have one of those permissions set. Yes, I know that. Thank you very much. I'm going and fixing it later. I heard that, everybody that just condemned me loudly and openly. But hey, you run a site like this, and you're going to experience the joy too. Okay, so what you see here is that everybody has the right to read, write, and execute the themes. And in fact, I'm going to fix something that I've done wrong on this right now. I am going to use my command, which is chmod, and this is change modifications, something like that. It's what it is modify the file, change modifications. I don't remember. Anyway, I'm going to modify the permissions on the themes folder right now, and I'm going to take away the right to execute. All right, watch this. This -R means recursive. It means that everything inside the themes is going to go away when it comes to executing. I have no idea what's going to happen on the front end, but we're going to check all together. So I'm going to do here themes. And what I need to do here is add the fact that I'm taking away for everybody minus the right to execute any of the files and folders inside themes. I don't think that executing is required for themes, but we're about to find out. When you see permission denied, what that means is you need to go back and you need to smack this file and folder until it does what you tell it to do. If you've ever seen the webcomic XKCD, you can tell that the way that you make computers do what you want is tell them sudo. Okay, now, what I'm going to do personally right now, and I'm going to show you that this is happening. This is actually happening in real time right now so that you can see what is really going on. I'm going to go and take a look at tarah.com. And I'm going to be able to see right now, I'm going to show you this right now. And this is a really interesting thing. I'm going to show you this right here, which is a very common WordPress error. Do you see how this is white right now? This is white right now because I needed to not take away the execute permissions inside that folder. This is one of those interesting things where permissions, you never quite get them all the way right, but you try. I'm going to go back to the terminal again. You should be able to see it now. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to give everyone, again, the right to by adding this permission. It's the equal sign. All right, now that I've done that, and the themes theoretically should be up and running again, I'm going to go back and check and find out. And there we are. The site is back up and running again. And the reason for that is because when I took away the right to execute, I'm guessing that one of the users, one of the imaginary users on the back end that had the right to execute files inside that themes no longer had the permission to do so. You never want to have more permissions available to everybody than absolutely barely possible, but sometimes WordPress gets a little fussy about which kind of permissions are and aren't available. Okay. Chown is the same thing. Sometimes you can't do stuff with files unless you own them, and chown means you're going to change the owner of the file. Okay. Next thing, we're going to go to services. There's two main services that really most people need to know about when it comes to the back end of a computer. Again, we're going to go back to the house analogy here. Like I mentioned about SSH, I went and knocked on the door of a house, and that house, if I'm going to go knock on it, I'm going to get let in if I have the keys to get in. Well, imagine Apache, which is a very simple web server, as something that lets you go and look at all of the web services that are available on that particular server. Like I said, there's a lot of different doors in that house. And imagine a website as going and knocking on door number 80 in that house. If you go and knock on door number 80, the Apache server is analogous to a guy that opens the door to door number 80 and holds up a sign and says, "Is this what you were looking for? This is what I know about." And then holds up a big picture of the Google front page or my website or any other. And you say, "Yep, that's what I was looking for. Awesome." Okay, so that guy behind the door is the Apache web server. One of the things that you might do, and I'll show you this a little bit later on with symbolic links, is you might tell that guy, I'm actually looking for one specific thing out of all of the images or the sites that you have access to. Say I'm looking to go to the Tarah instead of Red Queen Tech. And that guy goes back and says, "Okay, give me a second. Now I know which room I want to go to," and goes and grabs the stuff and pulls it out front and says, "Is this what you're looking for?" And you say, "Yes, it is." All right, so Apache and MySQL. Watch what happens when I do something like this. I am going to, this is again administrative permissions. I'm just telling it, hey, I absolutely have the right to do this. I'm going to shut down the Apache server on my website, in fact, on my entire server. And by that, I'm going to take a service here, Apache 2. That's the name of the web server. And I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to hit stop. Enter. And as you can see, I've stopped the web server. If you go look right now, my web server is going to be down right this second. So yes, go look. Just in case you're looking right now, yes, go look at it. If you're doing this in real time, it's done. It's gone. Hopefully you weren't actually on that site watching this image right now, in which case, go to YouTube. But if you're not, check this out. So what I just did was I just beat the guy over the head who typically answers door number 80. He's knocked out in the back hallway. Now I'm going to wake him up. I'm going to start that service. And now the web server is back up again, and you should be able to, and I have every confidence since I went and checked on all of this stuff before I did this, believe me, that you should be able to get back to the Tarah.com, Red Queen Tech, all of those sites again. That's what a server is. Same thing happens with MySQL. MySQL is the database. Now imagine that the guy is behind the door and he opens the door and you say, hey, I'm here to see the Tarah.com site. And he says, sure, that's awesome. I know what that is, but I have no way of going and grabbing all the stuff that you want to see on the site. MySQL is like the storage unit for all of the stuff that you want to hang on to for that site. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down the MySQL. This is a database, by the way. I'm going to shut down the database server for this entire server, for this entire computer. And to do that, I'm going to do the same thing with services. sudo service. Come on, you. MySQL. Stop. Okay, right this second, and again, it's only going to work if you're watching this live. Right this second, if you go and look, in fact, I'm actually going to show you this on the display. You're going to see that theterra.com is going to show something very, very interesting to you. So I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to go over here. Okay, do you see that? Error establishing a database connection. Unlike last time, it found that there was actually a website there. It just said, I have no idea where all the stuff is that I need to go to put things up again. I don't know where all of those assets are stored. Okay, now we're going to go back to the terminal again, and I'm going to restart the database service by hitting, oh, come on, you start. And I've started it. And again, if you are in real time right now, you can refresh on theterra.com and site's back up again. That's because now it knows where to go to find all those images and bits and pieces and text and things like that. Okay, so that's what services really are. Imagine them as people that live in the house that are going to hand you stuff if you knock on the right door, let you in or hand you stuff. Another good example of a server would be an FTP server. And that is when you back a truck up to the house and you knock on a particular door, probably door number 21, and you say, hey, what's up? I'm here to pick up the delivery. And the guy's like, sure, here's the box. And then you walk away because you have the box. That is an FTP server. The next thing we're going to look at here, the alias command is one that you should look up on your own, because while it is very important, it's one of those complex ones that's going to be kind of a pain in the butt to show you the correct way. And it's also one that I tended to skip over a little bit yesterday, as I realized that alias is one of those commands you don't use that often. And if you do use it, you probably already know what you're doing. So here's an interesting command, and this next command is number 6 on our list, and it is ifconfig. Think of ifconfig as a notification of where exactly you are in space and time. This is like GPS to get you, if you're sitting in the house and you're like, hey, this is directions to my house, this is what this command right here does. You are talking to somebody and you tell them, okay, you need to take a left and take a right and then stop at the place where the 7-Eleven used to be, and then there I am with the car up on blocks on the side of the road. This is what this is. ifconfig tells you the physical location, not the physical location, but the internet location of a server. The thing you're most interested in is on that second line, you see etho up at the top, that's the Ethernet connection. You see that the second line says inet address colon 166.78.10.48. If you go right now to any website on the internet and look up what is the IP address behind redqueentech.com or theterra.com, it'll tell you that my websites live at that internet address. And I'm not particularly worried about that because this is all handled by my cloud server, so you can know that and that's fine. You can see that there's pieces of information here that help you give directions to people. And often when you're using this, by the way, ETH1 down there, that is another internal Ethernet address for inside the hypervisor that is being used to, don't worry about the word hypervisor, that's being used to create the server that this is existent on. LO down there is localhost. And if you see this down here on the second line of that one, inet address 127.0.0.1, you'll see something very, very funny if you go look on the internet right now, which is that Google just got told to take down content that was harassing or promoting terrorism at the IP address 127.0.0.1, which is super funny if you're a nerd, because what it means is that somebody had some crap on the inside of their own server, and then they submitted something to Google to take it down in a totally different location. And that joke is really funny, but now that I've explained it, it's not nearly that funny. So I'm going to move on. Next piece is going to be LNS. This is a symbolic link. If you've ever dragged an icon on your desktop over onto over from your applications folder or wherever your program files are over on your desktop, so that you can have a quick link to the application that you're trying to get to, you've created a symbolic link. And what that means is that even though I think most of us kind of understand intuitively that you're not really storing all of the files, folders, and processes that make Adobe Photoshop up on your desktop, you need to have a link to them someplace. This is what that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how creating a symbolic link from one place to another makes a web server able to serve up websites. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to head to the location where I happen to know that Apache stores, let's see, it's the sites and the directories and the pointers to where all of the things are that I want to serve up to the outside world. So you go to the default location, in my case, because I've left it this way, and you go to Etsy Apache 2, and then in here you're going to see a couple of different directories. There are two interesting directories. Those two interesting directories to us are sites available and sites enabled. The thing that's interesting in sites available and sites enabled is that sites enabled doesn't actually have anything in it. Sites available is where the configuration files are located that tells the computer, especially if you have multiple different websites on the same server, which one is required. And the analogy here is you come and you knock on door number 80 of the house in Atlanta and say, hey, I'm here to see Red Queen Tech, or I'm here to see thetarah.com. And sites available says, okay, we've got those people that live here. Which one did you want to see again? In there is the configuration file that says this is where the files that live for the site that you're looking for is. Okay, I'm going to change directory into sites available. So you can see that I have a couple of sites here. One is, for instance, gleesmith.configuration. I've got thetarah.configuration, stories from women in tech.configuration, all kinds of fun stuff. These are sites that I have available that I could turn on and off if I wanted to. And these are actual files like you can see here. I'm going to change directory out of this and then back into sites enabled. And if you look in here, you can see these blue links right here. Because they're blue, that means this color that I have here in my syntax highlighting means that these are symbolic links. These aren't real files. They're pointers to where the real file lives. And for Apache, what you want to do is you want to set it up so that you can put a symbolic link into this directory, and that says to Apache, say, I know that there are lots of sites that you have here, but only some of them should be turned on. So for instance, if you look in the previous directory right here, you see gleesmith.conf, means Gleesmith configuration file. I don't have that website turned on right now. In fact, the only thing that I have turned on are the blue links that you see in here. I've got Noir Punk, Red Queen, Stories from Women in Tech, Prognosticatrix, Beacon Workshops, and thetarah. These are websites that I'm actually serving right now off of this site. Okay, so now I'm going to do something super tricky. Watch this. I'm going to remove, I happen to know I need to do this. I'm going to sudo remove thetarah.conf. Now it's gone. That link is gone. Imagine that the roommate in the big house has just hung a sock on the door, basically, or a sign outside the door that says, I am so not at home right now, leave me be. And the process of notifying the guy at door number 80 for the house that the roommate's not home right now is to make sure and push that message out to him. So I'm going to sudo service P2 restart. This is a quick notification. Hey guys, I'm not home today. Don't let anybody know where I am. Okay, now if you go right now and you look at my site, go and refresh thetarah.com. Here's what you're going to see. And I'm going to, hang on for 1 second here. stop. I'm going to go over here to the site, share. Okay, so what you can see is that this is the default server page. The default server page for this server means that the guy at door number 80 is like, I don't know if they are or aren't here. I really can't tell you that right now. I don't feel like getting in trouble. So I'm just going to let you know that, yes, in fact, this is a house that you have arrived at. And in fact, there's stuff here, but I don't know if I can tell you the stuff that you are looking for. Okay, well, that's reasonably helpful. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to head back over to the terminal again and present to everybody. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a symbolic link. This is the thing that's going to tell Apache that, yes, I do want you, in fact, to let people know that thetarah.com is home and taking visitors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that symbolic link by sudo ln, this just means link, -s. This is the switch that means symbolic. What this basically is if you read sudo ln-s, it means, yes, I have the right to do this command. I'm an awesome administrator root type person. I am elite and cool and super do what I say person. ln means make a link. -s is, and by the way, make that link symbolic. Okay, now I'm going to, like I said before, you can create shortcuts, but it's best to explicitly specify when you do links like this because you can always make some mistakes. So watch, I'm going to tab complete things, Apache to sites available. thetarah.conf, and I'm going to, again, now I said this is where this is where the file is, and I want you to make the link right here. Let's see, Apache 2, sites enabled, and here I'm going to thetarah.conf. Okay. What this says, if you read this here, is, yes, I have the right to do this, make a link, make it symbolic, the original file's in this location, and here's where I want you to make the symbolic link, and enter. Then I'm going to restart Apache again. By the way, I just hit the up key a couple of times. That's an awesome shortcut for you folks. If you don't know this, your bash shell will retain your history past several thousand commands, depending on how many you want it to retain. And if you press the up key, you can always just have it restart. Okay. Now, if you go back to my web page again, lo and behold, you can see that the site is back up again. So there it is. It's back up again. Now you're like, okay, you can let people know that I'm home. It's cool. So let's head back to the terminal again. Those are some really important pieces that you need to understand. The last of these pieces, I'm going to more explain than anything else. So I'm going to change you over to that list of commands again. And that list of commands is located right here. So these are the ones that I've explained so far. The major commands that help you negotiate what's going on your computer is up at the top. There's one. There's list, change directory, move, copy. Remember that I gave you that little hint right there with rm, which is remove, but be careful with that one. Chmod chown, that is change the ability of people to modify and then change the owner of the file. Sometimes that's really, really relevant. Sometimes it's not. Modifying is usually the command that you're going to use. Ownership is less of a worry unless you're the person actually administering the server. Apache and MySQL services are the same as other services. Services and server, that's kind of the reason why those are together. A server, services. So the Apache server is the guy that's answering the door number 80 and saying, yep, there's websites here. Which one do you want me to go hang out with? MySQL is like, yeah, there's a big storage unit in the basement. Which box did you want me to go to again? And I will go get the stuff in it for you and show you. FTP server is, hold on, here's a box, take it with you. There's other servers and services that can be, there's other services that can be running. Certainly SSH is a server that runs in the background. I'm not going to demonstrate why that does and doesn't work to you, because if I were to shut off the SSH server to the machine that I was in, it might boot me out and not let me back in again. And that would be inconvenient and somewhat embarrassing in the middle of a live web broadcast. The next thing over here is the SSH. You saw that. Alias, go look it up if you really want to use it. It's going to be something that you're going to use all the time, and yet you're only going to set it very infrequently. It basically means that you can create shortcuts for really super long commands. When I SSH'd into Red Queen 2, there is a huge command that is aliasing for. It's got the IP address in it and the username and the location of my pub key and all that stuff. And instead, I just say, go to Red Queen. All right. Number 8 now that you see this, ifconfig, by the way, remember that's like GPS location, geo-tracking. Number 7, make a link. Number 8 is your home directory. That tilde up at the top tells you that you're in your home directory, and your home directory is the default one that Linux is going to create for you and that you're going to live in. I have not really had much of a conversation about Windows, mostly because any server that you're going to have access to on your own is likely to not be an IIS server. That's Internet Information Services. That is the default web server that's used on Windows. And Apache is the one that's going to be the one most people are going to have their hands on. There's a few other ones that are going to be very common. Nginx is a really common one in the enterprise world. But just assume right now that no matter what the name of the guy is, whether it's IIS or Apache or Nginx, they're all answering the door they're all answering door number 80 and saying, yep, you can see this website now. Okay, number 9 is user bin and environment variables. Remember how I was typing in stuff and sometimes I explicitly specified it and sometimes I just typed in a little shortcut like CD or SSH or something like that? Each one of those commands means something really specifically to the computer, and it says, okay, change directory or CD. What does that actually mean? It's going to go look in different locations like the bin directory. Bin, by the way, means binary, and that usually means that it is fair for the purposes of this lecture to tell you that binaries are commands or executables, things that you're doing as opposed to things that you're storing or looking at. So that's where you're going to find most of the commands that you would be using on your machine. And number 10, grep and find. Grep is the way that you go and look inside a file for bits and pieces of text. You can specify a single file, lots of files, the entire file system. You can specify anything you want to. It's a very flexible command. I am personally terrible with grep, which is why I don't really want to demonstrate it right now. I'm a lot better with find, and I'm okay with find. Find is a very simple command that lets you go look for file names that have a specific kind of text in them. If I went to find something like Terra Marie or something like that, then I would find several different files that way. I'm also going to let you know that everyone has their nemesis when it comes to commands. And my personal nemesis, and you again can probably go look at more XKCD comics for this one, is tar. No one ever gets all the switches right on tar. There's a totally incomprehensible number of switches and variables that go into creating a good tar command. No one ever gets it right the first time. So the number one piece of advice, and I've got several questions up here that I am going to look at here in a moment. The number one piece of advice that I have for you is this. I think I saw a comic, and I don't remember where, or somebody told me yesterday. It was a headline that my friend Carly told me. She said, I saw this great headline that just encapsulated the entire joke. And I said, what's that? And she said, computer programming officially to be renamed Googling Stack Overflow for stuff, which is exactly what it is. Nobody ever remembers all this stuff the first time. You're totally fine if you have to go look stuff up again. And believe me, every single time I do a tar command, I have to go look up the correct way to do it. So let us take a look here. We've got a couple of questions. I'm going to pull them up on my Twitter feed. And I got a couple of emails and a few in here. Okie doke. Yay. All right, so, it looks like we got Joseph here talking about the errors establishing a database connection and noirpunk.com. I didn't know that was actually working. Was that working? Okay, well, I'll take a look at it then. Chances are if you hit the IP address without actually specifying, and this is something that most people should know, if you hit the IP address for a server without specifying the specific site you need to go to, which is, by the way, the difference in a virtual host environment on Apache between having one site and many sites at the same IP address, it's going to take you to the default server page, just like you showed above. Okay, we are so close to, wow, I went over like 16 minutes on this. That's fine. This is a really good piece of information for a lot of people to have. And the main thing that I do want people to understand about this is, stepping back from that, kind of brain dump of what is command line, why is it there, what are you using it for, is this. Yes, it is really powerful. With great power comes great responsibility. So if you're going to be mucking about using the sudo command, or as an administrator, which I'm not even going to show you how to do right now, understand what you're doing, because there's a couple of things you can do to royally mess up a server. Just make sure and do backups, like I did before I did this lecture, and everything will be okay. You can always restore things later. That's what version and source control is for. The next thing to remember, to really realize, I think, is this. If the front end of the computer, and by front end I mean the graphic user interface you're usually looking at, your launch bar, your start button, your desktop, if that doesn't scare you, the command line should also not scare you. You can do all of the same things in command line and on the front end, and I'm drastically oversimplifying here, in either one of those locations. So don't let the computery look of command line scare you into thinking that it's too powerful or too complex. There's nothing about it that's that freaky. And I will note that when I first started using command line, when I first started doing really much computer programming, and I started computer programming really when I was around 23 or so, but it was probably until I was 25 or 26 that I really started busting into Linux, I would say. I mean, I'd done bits and pieces of it all through my life, but I had to kind of get over this hump where I was kind of scared of looking at this. I didn't understand what was happening, and I was terrified that I was going to break the computer. It's actually, if you don't know what you're doing, it's actually pretty hard to break things behind the scenes. Unless you do something like follow the advice of a troll. And for that, just remember that the command I didn't show you, which is RM, just don't use that one unless you really understand what you're doing. Same thing with MV. Those are two pretty powerful commands, but RM is the big one. Just watch out for RM whack asterisks. That basically means remove a whole lot of things that you don't want to remove. And sometimes people play that nasty joke on people. Other than that, you have the power to do things so much faster in command line that it is crazy. And I had no idea about that. So if you're scared, if you're nervous, don't worry too much about it. That's basically all the real information that I need to give you today, other than to tell you that the closer that you get to the ones and zeros, the more power your computer has and the more power you have over it. So best of luck, best wishes. You're going to do great. I will see you all again next week. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Oh, and I didn't notice this. That's right. It was actually my friend Michelle who told me this yesterday, which was a total and utter blast. Googling Stack Overflow. It was pretty damn funny. Just remember, no one else knows what they're doing either. We're all just busy Googling things to try to figure out the correct code. So you're just a little earlier in the process than the rest of us who have no idea what they're doing every day too. Have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.